I'm Karl Tomusk, reporter at PlaceTech. Joining me today is Justin Harley, regional director at Yardi. We'll be discussing co-working and the tools that Yardi provides for the sector. Welcome, Justin.
Hi, Karl. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. Nice to be here, and thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. So let's get right into it. Could you give us an update on where the adoption of co-working is right now? Where do you see the market?
I think that that's being driven by a couple of things. One is nobody's got a crystal ball that's going to tell them what is going to happen in the future and how people's return to the office will go. One thing I think everybody is agreed on is that there will be an increasing amount of flexibility in the return to work. What that means is I think people are still defining that and trying to work it out themselves, what it means and what people's working patterns are going back to the office. One thing is for sure is that corporates are looking at their real estate portfolios and they are looking very hard at how their employees are working, what they want from their employees, and therefore what do they need in terms of their real estate operations. Is it a case of looking at more flexibility throughout the estate, and I think that the flexible workspace sector will be a great beneficiary of this change that's happening right now. So great sector to be in. I think they've had a really tough time over COVID, but the outlook's tremendously positive for the sector. I think those landlords that own commercial office portfolios are having to embrace flexible workspace too. So there's a lot of change around that area as well. So it's a real state of flux, and I don't think anyone really knows what's going to happen. I think it's a kind of watch this space.
So where do you fit into the equation? Let's start with Yardi Kube.
Yeah, so Yardi Kube is a brand name for a suite of products and services that really fuel a flexible workspace. So anyone wanting to add flexibility to their office portfolio, whether that be co-working, a fixed office, a membership scheme, meeting room booking, what we provide is a set of tools that allow them to manage the space, fully account for the space, but also members have an app that they can kind of book meeting rooms. They can basically manage their account. They can communicate with other members. And then probably, I think the most important service of all is that we provide the underlying Wi-Fi experience and security for many, many of these buildings. So, Wi-Fi is the kind of air that everybody breathes, and probably is one of the most important services in multi-tenanted buildings. So really we have a portfolio. Yardi Kube goes from really everything from managing the day-to-day front desk of a space, and that includes meeting room booking, members being able to self-serve, the full accounting and procurement solution at the back, and then more importantly, the underlying Wi-Fi technology that's required in a flex space to allow everyone to kind of use the bandwidth accordingly.
So that's kind of that kind of takes care of everyone in the space now. But how else does Yardi help sort of the traditional landlords who aren't in flex space yet? How do you help them make that transition?
It's a really great question, and there's a number of ways. I think I'm going to kind of step back a bit actually, because the first thing that traditional landlords have to do is what is their strategy towards flex space? That's the first question that we would ask anybody in terms of what's their strategy. Is it a case of they're going to do it themselves? So i.e. they're going to go into the space and run flexible workspace themselves. So i.e. a British Land, Land Securities with their Myo product, are looking at that journey. But there's also a number of landlords saying, hey, we're not so sure this operational business is for us. What we will do is we will partner with existing operators, and we assume they know what they're doing and have the tools. But what we want is the management reporting. So we want the kind of, in traditional commercial property terms, the property management piece. We want that reporting. We want to know how that building is performing. We want to know that the joint venture that we put together with the operator, how is that actually performing, and is the financial profile that we both set out to do in the first place, is that something that we're achieving, or are we behind? But also, I think, like any investor, they also want to know the granularity of what's happening with day-to-day stats, such as occupancy, number of inquiries, revenue per occupied workstation, for example. What's actually happening right across that building. So I think that's how we help people, especially in the commercial real estate sector. It's really their choice on whether they choose to operate that themselves, i.e. they use that technology directly from us, or they use, or just accept that the technology is being used by a partner that is managing their buildings.
Now, and then on the opposite end is the customers themselves. And you touched on this a moment ago, but what impact do your products have on everyday flexible office users?
So I think there's a couple of areas here in terms of the member experience. The most important area that our products touch on that member experience is actually the Wi-Fi experience. So for example, we spend a lot of time surveying buildings, looking at buildings, understanding what infrastructure needs to go into a building for it to be able to support the requirements of those customers. And those requirements are getting more and more sophisticated. Here we are on a Zoom call, we have our videos on. That has a massive impact on how Wi-Fi performed maybe 18 months ago, right, before COVID. So our products touch members that way, making sure that they've got a secure, reliable Wi-Fi connection. Karl, one of the stats that the industry will, I think it's a known fact in the industry, is that one of the reasons people leave flexible workspace, there's a couple of major ones, which are hygiene factors. Poor internet is one. The other one happens to be noise. What we say is that if you have poor internet, noise is actually a reason that that comes out of poor internet from people complaining. So I think that's one area. The other area is just in, simplistic things, increasingly, people expect to do things on their mobile phone, things like booking a meeting room. Hey, sometimes it's nice to go to reception and have a chat and say, can I have a meeting room at 2 o'clock on a Friday? But in reality, busy people, they just want to go online and book it. So those kind of tools are really critical convenience tools that we help with too.
Now, you mentioned at the beginning that all of this is obviously in flux, flux being in flux. How do you expect all of this to change in the next few years? Obviously, you don't have a crystal ball. You've already admitted that, but is there anything you can say about it?
Yeah, one thing I can probably put my hand on the heart and be quite confident about, in terms of, I don't have a crystal ball, but I reckon this prediction will ring true, is that more commercial real estate or providers of especially office space will have some kind of flex offering. I was at an event the other day, and Charlie Green from the Office Group, one of the largest flex providers, was saying that he expects every single office provider to have some sort of flexible offering. Now, behind that, it's not good enough for commercial landlords to be able to say, here's 4 white walls and we'll give you a flexible lease, right? That's not flexible, right? That there has to be an element of service and catering for the company's usage patterns. I think that's really one of the key things that we're going to see happen, is trying to understand how businesses are using the spaces, when they're using the spaces, and tailoring offerings for those companies.
And how's all that going to affect what you provide? Do you have any plans in the pipeline, any new developments for Yardi Kube?
I think what we will see is more data analysis about people, how they're using the space. I think that's something that I know all our customers would like to see more of, and that's something that will happen. I think the integration of tools such as, booking systems that you can provide to your customers so that they can book the space themselves. And what I mean, that's all like an internal booking system. So for example, let's say, for example, Yardi, we use flexible workspace. We are a customer of flexible workspace. What we are implementing is a booking system internally, whereby our staff have an app. We have a policy that there's certain bits of information staff have to upload to be able to book, and then they have rights to book. And then we have a policy about occupancy right now. So we're controlling occupancy within those spaces. The technology controls it, and we can book, and we can see who else has booked, who's in and who's not in. And once it's full, it's full. So we're kind of managing that through technology. Now, I do believe that technology will be something that a lot of flexible operators, workspace operators, will benefit from by providing that as a service to their customers.
Great. Thank you for that, Justin. I think that's a nice forward-looking note to end on. So yeah, thank you for joining us. And to find out more about everything Yardi does, please visit yardicube.co.uk. That's Cube with a K. Thank you.